A person can be burned alive here. Illegal substances are taken in broad daylight. The guys are shooting up in front of everyone. Now shelters have become more dangerous than the street. The people who run the shelters are criminal gangs. Homeless people have smartphones, and computers can be used for free in shelters. This is New York City, which now has the largest number of homeless people in its entire history. What do you associate New York with? Probably with the skyscrapers of Manhattan, Central Park yellow taxis, and places from Hollywood movies. But for many years, the homeless have become the same familiar part of the city. They can be found on main streets, in parks, and on the subway. The city has been trying to solve this problem for decades with varying success. But there are no fewer people without a roof over their heads. According to the Coalition to Help the Homeless, their number in New York has reached the highest level since the Great Depression. Today, we will find out what conditions homeless people live in, where they sleep, how they get food and clothes, and why they cannot or do not want to return to normal life. Make yourself comfortable, and we'll start. On the one hand, New York has amazing landscaping, lots of cool public spaces, a huge number of authentic cafes and restaurants, galleries and museums. In general, there is something to see here. But as in many cities around the world, in New York, homeless people can often be found at train stations, bus stations, and bus stops, especially at night. There are few homeless people at the bus station right now because it's daytime. The weather is good, and people are working, begging, collecting bottles. But they say that by evening there will be many more homeless people here. One of the main places of concentration of the homeless is Penn Station, one of the main train stations in New York City. There are usually a lot of homeless people around him and in public spaces nearby. This place is quite unpleasant, especially early in the morning and in the evenings. If you turn into the neighboring streets, you will definitely see people lying right on the asphalt, and no one cares about them. This is due to the fact that there is no rich business here that could take care of the condition of these streets. The station attracts random people, and there are small shops, fast food, and souvenirs around. This is not a business that can hire good security so that there are no homeless people under their windows. There are really a lot of them here. Young people are sorting plastic bottles, which they then hand over in order to earn at least something. You can see typical pictures. A person sleeps at a bus stop and no one touches him, although these stops are designed so that you cannot sleep there. Also, homeless people sleep in parks during the rain. And it turns out such an improvised greenhouse. I'm not sure if it's comfortable there, but at least it's dry and no one is touching it. About 16 of all homeless people in America live in New York State, more only in California. People end up on the street and stay there for a variety of reasons, most often a combination of several factors: lack of affordable housing, lack of work, addiction, or mental illness. In the USA, the state is not entirely social, so the assistance is minimal. That is, if you have lost your job and you have nothing to pay for housing, the way to the street is quite obvious. There are almost no other opportunities to find a roof. But this kind of life is not suitable for everyone. Homelessness in the States is a kind of lifestyle. Therefore, an American homeless person does not look like a homeless person in other countries. A homeless person is usually a depressed, swollen, dirty drunk. In fact, the problem of homelessness is much deeper than it seems. Many of them could not find work due to problems with alcohol, drugs, and post-traumatic stress disorder. PTSD. For the same reasons, veterans in the United States often become homeless. Despite numerous support programs after the war, it is difficult for such people to integrate into society. 13 of the homeless in New York are veterans. Another 500,000 veterans across the country are considered at risk of being on the street. Research shows that some veterans experienced serious financial difficulties even before their service. After returning from the war, against the background of PT, they begin to use drugs and alcohol. More than half of homeless veterans suffer from various addictions. Nevertheless, in recent years, the New York City authorities have managed to significantly reduce the number of veterans on the street. In 2022, 990 participants in the wars officially had no permanent housing, whereas in 2010, there were almost 6,000 of them. I am surprised by all this because everywhere, at airports, in public places, there are posters with greetings from veterans. Veterans are our everything. This creates the impression that people who served in the Army receive good bonuses from the state. But it turns out that not all of them. Here's what one of the veterans says. "You see, don't get me wrong, I'm proud to have served my country. But the government was not ready to take care of the veterans when they returned home. They didn't expect so many people to come back. They didn't expect so many now that they have begun to understand how to help us. Veterans are being taken care of much better now. But they didn't know what to do before. PEDS cannot be cured. It stays with you for the rest of your life. Even with medications, it's still a struggle. I have nightmares. I have tremors. It is difficult for me to fully live and communicate with people," says one of the homeless. That's for sure. The military system was not designed to provide for employees upon return. No one expected that so much support would be needed. They wanted people to go to war, come back or not, and then just handed their families a flag. Only now they are trying to change something. Now, the government is trying to improve the system, but it is a long process. There are places in New York City that distribute small bags of canned food and other products to the homeless and needy. Many people have been coming here for years. They live in small rooms and come here to eat, as they do not have the opportunity to cook at home. Such places are open every day. This is a public space. In winter, you can come and sit for a few minutes, maybe an hour or two. In the USA, there are public places that are open to everyone. In winter, you can hide there from the cold, but they don't work at night. Despite this, there are plenty of public laundries in the USA where you can wash your clothes for money. When the homeless have a little change, they go there. It happens that homeless people use urban reservoirs as a laundry. When they don't have money to wash their clothes, they come on a sunny day, wash them by hand, lay them out on the grass, and let them dry. Although it is not legal everywhere, homeless people can often be found with suitcases or huge bags, where they mostly have warm clothes, blankets, and sleeping bags. These belongings help them survive in winter. Homeless people who dress well are usually not kicked out of public places. In addition, if they have a veteran certificate, it opens some doors for free. For example, to have fun and feel like an ordinary New Yorker for a while. He used to kayak. However, most homeless people do not have this luxury. If they look untidy or smell unpleasant, they will most likely be kicked out of public places. Even though they are open to everyone, they will ask you to leave the place. If you don't leave, the police will come and kick them out. Unfortunately, today, the homeless problem in New York is quite complicated. They live in extremely difficult conditions and have to fight for survival. Despite the availability of public goods such as parks, libraries, and urban centers, access to them is often limited for the homeless due to social pressure, hygiene restrictions, and lack of systemic support. Despite this, in the United States, you can find people who lead a similar lifestyle not because of alcoholism or degradation, but because of financial difficulties, addictions, or mental illness. For example, war veterans who suffer from PTSD and addiction. Although support programs exist, they are not sufficient to fully solve the problem. The current situation shows that the problem of homelessness in the United States is multi-layered. People take to the streets for various reasons: job loss, high cost of housing, lack of social support, mental and physical illnesses. The city authorities are trying to combat this problem, but the results are still insignificant. There are more homeless people, especially against the background of social and economic instability. The life of the homeless in New York is a constant struggle for basic needs, such as food, clothing, and a roof over their heads. Many resort to non-standard solutions. They wash their clothes in parks, hide their possessions in secluded places, or use free public services in an attempt to preserve the remnants of a normal life. It's terrible when the country's veterans often find themselves abandoned to their fate. But New York is getting better. I hope they can solve this problem.